Welcome to this month's Bagels in Business. This month, we welcome candidate for the 3rd Congressional District, Susie Lee. For more information about this and other events, visit lvlcc.com.
Another friend running to serve, and just sometimes I wonder why people want to do this, but you're a good example of why, and we need people like you running. So it's my honor to introduce Susie Lee running for Congress.
All right, thank you. Peter, thank you so much for having me. Peter and I have worked on several initiatives over the years, and why I'm running for Congress, I think Senator Heller said it best, is that there's more good than bad. I've had a career here in Southern Nevada, 25 years of service to our community. I grew up, I'm one of 8 kids from Canton, Ohio. My father worked in a steel mill. My mother stayed at home, but they taught me and my family 2 things: that with a good education and hard work, we'd have a better opportunity than they did. And that's certainly been the case for me. And it's why I've dedicated my life to making sure that other young people have that same opportunity. And it happens to be the reason I'm running for Congress, to make sure that we all have an equal opportunity at success. I moved here 25 years ago, worked with the mayor, Arnie, wherever he is, worked with him and opened the city's first comprehensive homeless drop-in center. I then, when the Clark County School District cut after-school programmings, I started the Inner City Games, which now is called the After School All-Stars, serving 7,000 students every day. I then started an organization called Nevada Women's Philanthropy, which has invested over $4.5 million into critical nonprofits in our community. And then for the past 6 years, I've been the president of Communities and Schools, in which we've worked strongly with the Latino and Hispanic community, making sure that we get kids graduated from high school and on a track to success. And we've had grown 5-fold under my leadership, and have now we serve 64,000 students, getting a graduation rate of 87%. So it's pretty clear that when I see a problem happening in our community, in our country, I'm not afraid to roll up my sleeves and go take it on. And Washington is divided and broken. We're no longer working together. And sadly, we're not delivering results for people back here so everyone can have an equal opportunity. So I look forward, Peter, to having this conversation. Thank you so much for having me.
Let's talk some business.
All right.
You can hold the mic if you like. Right?
Yeah, I will.
So I'm going to start off with the same question on how you feel about the Latino business community and the importance of it to the overall success of our community.
I'll mimic Senator Heller's sentiments in that the Latino business community is the largest growing sector of small businesses in our community, almost doubling from 2007 until 2014. So when we talk about economic development, economic diversification, and making sure people have jobs that pay the bills, it's really the Latino community that is at the forefront of making sure that happens. So I think it's incredibly important, and I'm sure we're going to talk about ways to make Latino businesses even more.
Well, let's get right into that.
Okay.
It's going to be next up.
Listen, I think one of the major problems I hear from business owners is access to capital, and making sure that we open those avenues for small businesses. One of the things you'll find a lot with Hispanic-owned businesses is they don't have the access, so they tend to more readily go after the payday loans and get stuck into the predatory lending cycle, which then makes them less likely to be successful. Another issue that I think is important too, and one I'd love to work together and train businesses on, is the use of technology. When you talk about looking at ways businesses can access different types of capital, a lot of it's done through the internet and online, and a lot of Latino-owned businesses or small businesses are less likely to do their bookkeeping and things online and or on the computer. So making sure we're setting up those training programs and and really educating small businesses on just, really, it's not, I wouldn't say it's simple, because if it were simple, it'd be done, but it's an education process, and so I think that's a really important part.
Absolutely. Let me ask you, would you consider yourself a business-friendly Democrat?
Absolutely.
Why do you say that? What's your background?
First of all, as I told you, I've started several businesses. They've been nonprofit businesses, but even with that, you have the pressure of going to sleep at night and making sure you're meeting payroll. You want to make sure that you're sustaining what you've promised. If you've given someone a job, you want to make sure that they have a job after a year. You're dealing with healthcare costs. You're dealing with changes in regulations that impact. For me, it's not impacting my bottom line, but it's impacting my ability to deliver more services to our community. If I'm paying more in payroll and administrative costs, that means less that I'm delivering to the community. So as a person who has started businesses and led businesses, and more importantly, grown them, I understand the pressures that so many businesses are under.
Yeah, and some people think that, Congress can't really help a small business in Nevada because they're focused on Washington, D.C. and all that, and I know that not to be true. So I know that because when Creston Hardy was congressman, we had an issue with a small business restaurant here, and it had to do with transportation and federal highway and big deal, and he came to that man's rescue, and I'd like that same commitment that your door will be open for our small business community.
Absolutely. I plan on having a small business roundtable liaison, making sure, and obviously with Latino chamber representation on that as well.
Excellent. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the $15 an hour also. I know that's more of a state issue, like the senator pointed out, but I'm curious your feeling on it. Again, the Latin chambers, we focus on bigger numbers than that. We want the freedom to think bigger than $15 an hour.
Yeah, I understand. Listen, we're at low unemployment. You would think that wages are automatically going up. I beg to differ. I don't think they're automatically climbing, and the minimum wage is not necessarily what businesses strive to. It's actually to protect our most vulnerable. Over half the people who earn minimum wage are under the age of 25. 62% of them are females. So 1 in 6 children is born into poverty in our country. So when we're talking about minimum wage, it's protecting those most vulnerable. I support increasing the minimum wage, but I also understand the impact it has on small businesses, and making sure we're doing it in an approach and dealing with regional differences and industry differences to make sure that we're not deleting those very jobs that we're trying to protect, but also making sure we're still protecting the most vulnerable.
Excellent. So we got into a little bit of Yucca Mountain earlier. What's your stance on Yucca Mountain, and what are you going to do about it?
Well, this is actually a very significant difference between me and my opponent, Danny Tarkanian. He supports Yucca Mountain and developing Yucca Mountain. I do not. I look at this as an area where we, as a delegation, need to be a solid wall on this idea. And it's not, to me, it's just an economic choice for our state. I mean, thinking that the driver of our economy in Nevada is the Strip right now, and having nuclear waste going on the train tracks that have a radiation field that encompasses the Strip. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when there's going to be a major catastrophe that's going to sink the state. So I'm not in favor of becoming the nation's dumping ground for nuclear waste, and I think that this is an area where we must have bipartisan, we must be solid in a bipartisan, opposition to this.
And the chamber's stance is there are states that want it really, really bad.
Right.
Texas wants it really, really bad, so why not let Texas have it?
I'm all for it.
So let's talk about marijuana real quick. Like I said earlier, marijuana, the people have spoken. what we're going to see next if we don't get involved, and if our elected officials don't get involved, what's going to happen next is we're going to start reading about, dispensary owner getting murdered, getting robbed, and crime. That's going to happen. I mean, I happen to know that it has happened already.
It already
it doesn't get in the paper
happened.
too much, but it's already happening. And I'd like to know how you feel about that industry, and hopefully you want to start taking those taxes that they're paying
Put them into education.
And put them into education.
Where they belong.
Exactly.
Absolutely. I'm fully in support of the marijuana industry, and I think that obviously we need to do something from a federal level, and I agree, if we can't get it on at a federal level, making sure we have banking access. Listen, like gaming, we are at the forefront of an industry, and we led the way. We know how to regulate. We set the model. We are the state for setting the model for regulating the gaming industry. We can be the state and are the state on how we adequately deal with the marijuana industry, and banking's the #1 issue.
So access to capital. We know that as good as things are right now, and our Nevada economy is booming, there's cranes everywhere, we still know that small business has a problem getting access to capital. And if we were able to get more capital to small business, more risk, and to the risk takers, I think it would create even more of a boom and more jobs. How can you as a Congresswoman help us with that?
Again, I think a lot of this is through education and obviously having an open door for small businesses. But also one thing, a lot of businesses don't understand the steps you need to take to be like bond ready and capital ready, and making sure that we're helping them get on those steps. And when you start a small businesses, you love to cook, or you're an accountant, or you want to open up a hair salon, and then whatever it is, then you become successful, and then you want to expand. A lot of small business owners go with what their entrepreneurial heart is, but let's also put in training with them to understand that here you are now, and let's think about the steps you want to be at. In case you do want to expand how big you are, etc., and so that you have in place what you need to get that access.
I know you have a real passion for education. There's no question about it. And at the chamber, we've been talking a lot more about there is a serious connection between education and the business community, right? The communities around the country that spend more on their education make more in the community. There's more dollars floating in the community. So tell us about how you would connect education and small business community together.
Okay. Obviously, education has been at the forefront of what I've done for 25 years. When I moved here 25 years ago, the first thing that struck me about Nevada is we're a boom-bust economy because we rely on one industry. And how are we going to attract other businesses? The #1 issue is education. And again, you'll hear whether it's businesses who want to come here, they look at our education system and they say, I'd rather go somewhere else. And it's not just for the employees that they have, it's for attracting well-trained new employees. And, I was in Boulder City a couple weeks ago, talked to a great couple. They own a machine rental business in North Las Vegas. They can't find enough well-qualified employees. So not only do I believe in, obviously investing in K-12 and higher education, but, everyone doesn't need a 4-year degree. I do believe that Nevada has been in the leadership role on apprentices training and on vocational training, and let's continue that and make sure we're working together as a system to look at what jobs we're wanting to attract, what's our training programs, and how are we connecting the dots between not just higher ed. I mean, we can start vocational training in high school. And how are we connecting the dots among all the sectors so that we're making sure we're producing a workforce that will sustain our businesses. But on top of that, we're not getting anywhere unless we make major steps to improve our education system.
So tell us why you over your opponent, and tell us what your first 60 days, 90 days will look like.
Oh gosh, well, listen, I think that there's a clear difference between me and my opponent, Danny Tarkanian. I have been in this community for 25 years. From the minute I stepped foot here, I looked around at what the major issues facing our community were. I wasn't afraid to reach out, and by the way, I believe this is one of the greatest communities in the world. We are the center of innovation. We are I mean, you know, I come from Canton, Ohio, where the economy just shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. My dad was laid off from a steel job at the age of 56, could never find another job. You know, we think about the recession that we went through and how now, you know, 8 years later or 10 years later, we are now on the cusp of another strong growth spurt. But making sure we can sustain that growth and that everyone benefits that is important. But so that was a whole sidestep there. Let's get back to the meat of this. I have been here for 25 years on the ground. Not only that, working together with people. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or you're a Democrat. If there's a problem, we got to work together to address it. And whether it was homelessness or, you know, we started the inner city games when gang violence is still an issue, but it was major. We didn't have any services for that. Or our dropout prevention program. I've had a career of not only not being afraid to get the job done, but actually getting the job done. And I'm running against a guy who has run for 6 offices on and off since 2004. And not only that, he comes to this with a track record of shady business deals. And I have major concerns with his ethics. And, you know, I just think it's a clear decision that people have to make, where I am a person who will get on the ground, get the job done, and produce results, or someone who has shown that he has consistently failed at what he's tried to do, which is run for office, and also shown some ethical issues with the business dealings he's done.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Susie Lee.
Thank you for watching this month's Bagels in Business with candidate for the 3rd Congressional District, Susie Lee. For more information about this and other events, visit ldlcc.com.